Good morning. Every now and then, even the old geezers have to sit down and try to relax a little. It's a beautiful Saturday morning, and no doom and gloom for me today. I'd like to take a little time out and maybe tell you a little story from my veterinary past. It might be something a little different, and maybe you get a little amusement out of it. It concerns cosmic justice. Now, I believe the universe has a way of evening out all of these ups and downs that occur in one's life. That if there are evil people, they never really get away with their evilness. That sooner or later there is a reckoning. That sooner or later the chickens come home to roost. And I believe that is the case. I've had 3 incidents of cosmic justice occur in my life, and the very first one, which I'll relate to you now, occurred when I was in veterinary school, and it was late in the year, and we would always, as students, put on veterinary days for the public to come in and see what the veterinarians did. And there would be surgeries and various displays and whatever that people could look at, and it was quite popular with children and parents. The main attraction was Clara, the cow, great big cow, who had a window attached to her side where you could look into her living stomach. Now, in a research facility, you sometimes want to know if a certain additive will affect milk production in a cow in some manner. And you can't always get them to eat some of these things. So what they would do is do a surgery, bring the stomach up close to the skin, attach it, create this hole, put a plastic liner around it, and then a screw lid about this big. And when they wanted to find out if something affected the milk production, they would unscrew it and just dump in whatever the additive was, and they could be very consistent on their results. Well, Clara was a big cow. We had a step stool kind of up there so that when the children came, they could step up and look in. And my job was to take care of Clara, feed her, water her, clean up after her. And when the kid got on the stool, to open up the side, and he could look into the stomach of a living cow. Well, it's a hot day, and it's a long line, and it's going slow. And from the back of the line, you could hear one of those kids, little Johnny. "Mom, how come we're waiting so long? It's so hot. Can't we get to the front of the line? Why can't we cut up there? Can't these people get out of the way?" And I mean, it's a diatribe that continues without let up. And Mom is there looking in her purse, trying to get a little chewing gum or anything to distract this kid, but it's for naught. And it's just like raking fingernails on a blackboard. We're all standing around there, and it's perpetual. Well, we endure that. Finally, it becomes Johnny's turn to take a look. He steps up on the ladder, on the little stool. I reach over and open up the window. Now, what happened next, I really can't explain, but I think it started like 4 billion years ago, and a star exploded, and it cast out all of this material throughout the universe and in all different directions for millions of years. And some of this material came to a big gravitational well where a sun formed, and the third planet around this sun was forming, and this glob of star dust came into the gravitational pull of that planet and stayed there for millennia, until a short time before our open house. And then the gravitation of the Earth pulled this piece of star down into the atmosphere. Part of it burned up, but what was left was just a little speck of this stardust. Fell on our guy's hay field. He baled the hay. He brought the university, bought the hay. They delivered it to the large animal clinic. I went over to the storeroom, grabbed a bale for Clara that morning, and this stardust was in there. So I was feeding her, and right before Johnny came up, I had brought out a little flake of hay for her, fresh hay, that had the stardust in it. And she's munching on that. And when he looked in to the window, She inhaled sharply for some reason, and the piece of stardust hit the back of her throat and caused this violent reaction. We would call that a cough. Now, it's not a little polite cough. This is a huge, gut-wrenching cough. A massive inhale and a blast of a cough. And we all know from our physics that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. And that opposite reaction was a violent contraction of her stomach, which propelled a fire hose stream of green pea soup out of her stomach through the window and directly into Johnny's face and ran down his entire body. And there he stood like a giant, slimy green popsicle. And there was just this stunned silence. You could hear a pin drop. And Johnny just stood there frozen. Nobody said a word. Finally, the mother moved and reached into her purse and pulled out a little tissue and walked up to Johnny and dabbed on his eyes just a little bit so he could open those. Then she gingerly grabbed his hand and led him away down to the restroom to hopefully try to clean him up. Now, I don't know for certain, but I think that when Mom passed by me, that I could detect a little twinkle in her eye. But it was still silent. And in that moment, I think it became obvious to everyone in that room that there was indeed a God, and that He is a just God. So that's how the universe evened out the irritating little kid from the back of the line. The universe knew 4 billion years ago that this thing was going to occur, and it set in motion the appropriate balanced action that would help bring everything back into balance again. And we all feel balance. So there, I hope that is a little bit humorous for you. We have so much negativity in our lives now that when I would write my newspaper column for the farmers in my area, I'd write scientific things they could do, but the biggest and best reaction was always when I wrote something humorous about me falling in the manure or something, and they would get a big laugh out of that, and I realized that sometimes people just need a little laugh in their life. So I hope that brings a little to you. We'll maybe have some more stories down the line a little bit. But for today, enjoy this beautiful Saturday the best that you can. And I hope you stay well and stay safe.